Was anyone at all surprised at the news yesterday that two Canberra Raiders players got drunk, behaved like pork chops and were kicked out of their hotel? Are these guys role models? No. Should they be? No.
It's not about their ability. Everyone in the NRL has ability. It's your mindset, it's your attitude to your personal preparation.
Don't tell me Penrith can win 5 in a row. What? That's St George back in the 60s.
I don't think they can win 5. I mean, wouldn't that just be absolutely mind-blowing?
Welcome to the DSPN.
He's given him. Well, there you go. He was forward.
Oh, a punch up now in midfield. Fraser's involved.
The Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
Welcome to the podcast, people. Episode 51, the DSPN. Martin, Devlin, Lachlan Waugh. If you're listening on Rover or wherever you find your favourite podcasts, we put out a lot of clips on social media every day. Martin Devlin _DSPN. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. So share, like, leave us a comment. If you're watching on YouTube, the DSPN channel, hit that subscribe button. Come on, do it for us. We're inching towards 5,000 subscribers. Really does help us this side of the microphone. Again, leave us a comment, because on Fridays we're Fan Forum, where we pick and choose a few of your comments and we comment back on those comments. League, and more league on the show today. Matt Elliott, the former Panthers, Raiders and Warriors coach. Significant because, Raiders playing the Warriors, as you know, this Sunday. He's now an ABC commentator. He joins us alongside lifelong Bulldogs fan Matt Gunn, Gunny from Twizel, and Zane The Warriorholic, as we build up big time to the opening round in Vegas on Sunday. And on that,
we live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
was anyone at all surprised at the news yesterday that two Canberra Raiders players got drunk, behaved like pork chops and were kicked out of their hotel? No. Would it have even made the news, though, if it wasn't two NRL players? No. It's Vegas. Two guys got in trouble and got drunk. They make movies out of that stuff. Why were they out on the grog just days before the opening match on Sunday? I don't know. Ask the coach about that. Why were they made to apologise in front of the cameras? Because that's what you do these days. You do the mea culpa. You talk about your family and I'm so disappointed and I've let everyone down and I'll never do it again. All the old cliches. And then it all just goes away. Were they stupid? Yes. Will they do it again? Absolutely. If not them, then someone else will this season. That's as sure as Penrith making the top 4. You know that. Are these guys role models? No. Should they be? No. Role models are your parents, not professional rugby league players. Was it a big deal? Well, that's up for you to decide. So, back to the original question. Were you at all surprised? Me? No. Hell no. Not in the slightest. I'm only surprised there aren't another 10 more stories exactly like this.
Devlin.
Rugby League is back this weekend, and he's a great mate of the show, former Penrith coach, former Warriors coach, former Canberra coach, which obviously ties in nicely to Sunday's opener in Vegas, working for ABC on the commentary team too. Matt Elliott joins us again. Thanks so much, mate.
Former is probably what you could just call me rather than call me Matt. Just call me Former. So always great to have a chat to you, Martin. I hope you're well, mate.
Yeah, I am. Thank you. You're as current as, mate. And look, exciting times this weekend. Only a couple of games, obviously, and then the first round, the rest of it takes place a week or so later. The whole Vegas thing, look, it's a big shiny, look at me and everything else. Park all of that for a second, and let's talk about what we're going to see first in that opening match between the Warriors and the Raiders. Are the teams ready to go?
Yeah, I think that all what I saw in last weekend's trials, maybe not the teams that are playing, but I thought that there was some pretty really, really good performances across, the whole competition. And I was pretty excited, to be honest with you, with some of the young talent coming through. Like when you consider the Penrith team, their team was over in Vegas and they put their reserve grade team out against Manly, and some of the young talent that we saw across all teams on the weekend, I thought was really exciting.
Yeah, look, and, you can tie in that with the Warriors against Melbourne, and I know the Melbourne side wasn't their strongest side, but those young players we saw that day as well. So what kind of year is it going to be for the Warriors? 5 very experienced players gone. James Fisher-Harris comes in, but something like 850 games of hard-out NRL experience no longer there. And that does count for a lot as well,
It does it'll have a big impact. Yeah, you can't dodge from that. Everyone needs to be aware, but there's a balancing act to it as well. Now, Tohu Harris, who I thought is such an underrated player, and his impact or his absence last year had a massive impact, in my opinion. And you could see that he wasn't right, though. He wasn't his normal self. He wasn't the same player that was playing the year before. So the cumulative effect, what it allowed opposition coaches to do was just to focus on Fanua Blake in the middle. And that allowed them to snuff them out. So while it is a big loss to have that experience come out of your team, and particularly Sean as well, you are going to get some vibrancy. So there's a bit of a balancing act that they have to go through. If you ask me whether that's going to be a positive, to start off with, I think they'll probably go back just a little bit and then really start to soar upwards, because, as you said on the weekend, some of the young talent coming through, if that's nurtured through the Warriors system, and I'm very confident that'll be the case in these days, you've got a lot to be optimistic about.
Let's look realistically about what we want and what we can expect from the season. A couple of years ago, as well, everyone knows, top 4, 16 wins. Last season was really disappointing. There's no other way. It was a failed season with 9 wins and 1 draw out of 24 matches. Frustrating on this side as well, and that there's just no critical analysis of the Warriors. And when a team has a season like that after a successful season, you need that criticism to be able to, I think, take stock, recenter yourself and go, okay, now where do we set the targets? This year, for me, first and foremost, Matt, it's got to be more wins than that. That's number one target, surely.
Yeah. Can I challenge you a little bit on last year? Because the season before, what the Warriors did really well was win close games, didn't they? They had a lot of games that were not just golden point, but really tight margins, which showed great discipline, great fortitude and mentality. The mindset was really, they had a lot of narrow losses last year.
Yeah, so I think about 6 within 6 or something, wasn't it? Something like that. Yeah.
So it wasn't really a huge decline. It was just key moments where those players that we just talked about weren't able to make the difference that they did the year before. So, look, I think it's a fair thing to expect some more wins than what you got last year. But everyone needs to understand that we're in a reformation of the Warriors, and I really just hope that we start to see that 90% of Warriors recruitment comes from the Warriors junior system.
Yeah, good call.
And there's time put into those young players. Like, I would have loved to have, had a little bit more time to put into young players when I was there. But that's the key thing. The talent and the ability is there to win comps. There's no doubt about it. It just needs to be nurtured.
So, harking back to what you said, I accept all of that. What you saw with Penrith as well, what that must do to a club when you've got a first team and A team, and then you've got players that are striving to make that. And so you might have, say, 26, 27 players that you can consider in that pool. And then you've got a huge group of youngsters who are going, get out of my way because I'm coming through too. What the momentum and the wave that must create.
And that's exactly what you want. And what a lot of clubs do wrong with those young players is they teach them to win under 19s, under 17 competitions, not teach them to be NRL players. And that's the difference. When you see a Penrith player come into and play, make his debut after playing in their juniors, he looks like an NRL player, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Because that's what they've been coached to do. With mindset, it's not about their ability. Everyone in the NRL has ability. You don't get to the NRL if you don't have it. So that's not the difference for you. It's your mindset. It's your attitude to your personal preparation. And if you don't have that, you don't make that through the Penrith system. You do that in a Warriors system, I'm telling you, you'll 90 to 95% of recruitment will become internal. And how good is it when you've got a system where people are looking behind them going, wow, what about these young players coming through? I really need to make sure that my focus, and you can see that in the Penrith team, can't you?
Yes, absolutely. Look, so when you say reformation, does that mean we have to temper expectation? To me, making the 8 this year would be a really successful season for the Warriors. And I think I know every team targets that. And I also know that 2 or 3 drop out. There's a hell of a lot of teams that didn't make the 8 who are all sitting there looking to go, we are going to do it this year as well. We'll talk about the Raiders in a second. They missed out on points differential. But long-winded way of asking, is making the 8, that would be a great season for the Warriors given where we're at right now?
Absolutely. I think you're 100% right there, Mark. I think the big thing is keeping your best team on the field. So you can't help but be a little bit excited about having Metcalf and Harris Tavita in the halves, right? I think that's a really exciting combination. You've got to keep them there for the whole year and get them to evolve together. If they're having to be changed around and you're dealing with injuries, I'll just use that as one example.
Sure.
That's going to make it very difficult, even though there's players that are going to come in and that have ability, but that continuity in those key positions, and they haven't had the opportunity to play a lot of footy together. No. And there's been your fair share of injuries across that position as well. So if you can keep those 2 players fit and healthy, they're not pleasant players to coach against, because there's a whole lot of unpredictability in them. You're dealing not just with what they can do with their skill set and moving the ball on, you're dealing with them as a threat carrying the ball. And they both are good defenders when they've played, consistently.
Oh, it's great to hear you talk so confidently about that because, again, with the Warriors last year, I mean, look at just a horror run of injuries. And we saw that even though that the team that was put out there did beat Penrith, but at times, I think it was 16 or 17 players gone. Let's look at the Raiders, though, the opponent this weekend. And again, as I said, missed out on points differential. Well, that must bite you just as bad as anything does in the NRL. You were that close to making the finals and you lost a couple of big games and it didn't happen. So how good is that team going to be this year? What do they have to do to lift themselves?
Well, when you talk about losing experienced players, I think they've trumped the Warriors in that area. They've had a lot of players exit. Their captain Elliott, Whitehead, and a lot of players. So I think they're the youngest or most inexperienced team in the competition. So I think it's a really good start for the Warriors. I'm not saying that they're going to be a walkover, but I think that they're definitely, again, they're going in that cycle where they're going to have to go backwards to go forwards.
Right.
That's my observation. It's not often that you get a team of young players that burst onto the scene in the NRL and sit in the top 8. Give me the last one.
Oh, geez.
Probably Penrith about 5 years ago, 6 years ago.
Yeah, I was going to say the Roosters, but then they actually had no, it wasn't them because they actually had some highly experienced players. God, I'm even going back 10 years to the Tigers, maybe, or even further than that. So yeah, you're right. It's a great point to make. So
it's
does that
the exception, not the rule?
The rule, yeah, right. So the Warriors, you think, on balance, go in as favourites. It'd be great to kick off with a win. It'd be such a boost for the club to take 2 points out of that.
Yeah, and, for whatever reason, the Raiders have also had to deal with some distractions this week.
Mm-hmm. Vegas is about distractions, Matt. We both know that, mate.
Yeah, but, we do invent them and we do exaggerate them. Like some of the stuff I saw in the media yesterday in Australia was seriously.
Look, I mean, I started the show by saying this. What does anyone, expect? I mean, I don't. It's no surprise to me. It's a dumb thing to do, but that's all it is. It's a dumb thing to do. I don't really think that these guys' lives have to be absolutely over-examined and more made of it than what it actually was. But that's just my view. I'm saying.
Well, I'm just telling you. If next time we catch up, if I've got to blow up baseball bat, I'm coming for you. I'm dead set coming for you.
It's not the worst thing that's happened there before. All right, finally, let's finish on the Penrith game versus the Sharks. Sorry, keep going.
No.
Enough said on that.
Finish on the Penrith game.
All right, Penrith, and, this is a team that unprecedented. I mean, the level of success, and, it's not just the 4 in a row, it's 5 grand finals in a row. And as you know, as a coach and as a commentator and been around the game your whole life, winning one's hard enough. We've seen it with Manchester City, who after 4 years of winning back Premier Leagues have dropped off. Trying to do it again, I mean, just to think that they could win 5 in a row is mind-blowing.
It is mind-blowing, but it is possible. Did you see their reserve grade team play against Manly on the weekend? When you talk about looking over you shoulder some of the talent coming through, let alone what they've got in the team over there. Brian Toto out this weekend, I don't think is super helpful for them because he does so much work coming out of their backfield. Goes very unrecognised. But I think they're going to probably come out in second place this weekend because that Cronulla team is, they've had a great preparation. Penrith haven't had the perfect preparation, and that's fine. Penrith play a season; they don't play the opening rounds. We saw that last year, right? They didn't burst onto the scene, but they'll accumulate momentum and they'll be right there. Like, can they win 5? Yes, they can. Will they? If you said, "Oh, all right, Matt, you have to bet on it," I'd say no, they're not going to. Just because some of the amazing talent that they lost yet again. But, it'll be an interesting one to see. They're such a fantastic organisation.
How good. It's back, mate. It's brilliant, isn't it?
It is. I can't wait. I can't wait for the weekend.
Well, you've heard from Matt Elliott. Now it's time for our good old mate, Zane The Warriorholic, who has been a super fan since 1995. And here we go again, son, eh? Another season. How you feeling?
Mate, it's been a bloody long off season, so I'm glad things are finally underway. We can stop kind of making up stories to talk about. We're actually talking about a team that's been named. Bloody excited, to be honest. Let's look at that halves combination. Are you surprised by that? Luke Metcalf was given the nod, but CHT next to him? No, it was my prediction. I always thought he'd probably get the nod. Fogarty for the Raiders has got one of the best kicking games in the comp, so I thought it's pretty risky to go up against that with just the one kicking option there and Luke Metcalf, but I'm still not sure. Webby loves a late change, so maybe Timoci gets a late call in. Who knows? Okay, well, he's on the bench anyway, so we've got enough halves cover there. As far as the actual overall 17 goes, positional changes, you happy with what you're seeing? Again, I'm not 100% convinced it'll be the team that'll run out, but as it's listed, I'm pretty happy with it. I feel like there's a sneaking suspicion, or I have a sneaking suspicion that Sam Healy may come in at the last minute. He's 18th man, so Webby often leaves guys who might debut in that 18th man position until 1 hour before kickoff to keep the pressure off them. So don't be surprised if he comes in. Okay, just show me that wedding ring finger of yours. Did Sam slip that on your finger himself, did he? Because you seem to have a love fest with this guy. Mate, look at those metres he gained in the trials. He's just got so much acceleration out of dummy half up against a big tired Raiders pack. First round of the year, they'll be tired. I reckon he'll be the guy. Matt Elliott was just saying before that he thinks that the Raiders are in a very Warriors-like position, and that is he calls it, instead of rebuilding, a reformation year, or maybe a couple of years where they're might have to go backwards a little to go forward. A lot of young guys, and that they've lost a lot of experience as well. I don't know. Looking at them, I guess you could argue that, but they're like us. Their top 17 is very solid. They've got a young fella on the wing who's only played one game with NRL, what's his name, Tamale, and they're looking at debuting a hooker as well. So other than that, it's a pretty solid lineup that we've seen from them for a couple of years. So a couple of injuries, and they could be in trouble just like us. How do you think I look at this Raiders side and I just think that if they're not absolutely hurting still for missing out last year on points differential, there's something wrong with them. Yeah, I don't know. The Raiders are one of those teams that we either lose by 1 or beat by 20. Yeah, I don't know which one it'll be this week. Honestly, I think there's nothing there that should, in theory, scare us that much. But Ricky has a way of getting them up, particularly off the back of a bit of hype in the media after that fight the other day. So, yeah, I don't know. That can do two things to a side, can't it? But, you're right. It could easily galvanise them. That difficult to pick. Before we even get into, tell us about the young guys who you've been talking to me all summer about these guys, and a couple of them are now actually going to get game time. Well, let's hope they get game time. You start off with Adi Latoa. He debuted last year against the Raiders in Jared Croker's 300th game and basically gave him a lesson on footy in his debut. Didn't play a lot of footy after that because he pulled a hammy and did a couple of other little nibbles, but he came back against the Sharks in the final round last year and absolutely carved it up. So I think he's going to cement a spot there at centre for the whole season if he can stay fit. But I'm really excited to see Timoci Tavatavanawai and Leka Halasima if they do both play. Both of those boys, they showed in the trial, granted they were playing against a reserve grade side against Melbourne, but they had their two of their starting props out there. And as a 1-2 punch, I don't think there are too many impact players off the bench that'll match them for speed and power. And they both really remind me of Ardie Savea. Not the biggest guys on the field by any stretch, but they've just got that power to weight ratio and the speed. So watch out for those three guys this season. I think they'll have massive breakout years.
Zane, just in terms of what you want from the team this year, obviously we all want top 8. I mean, that goes without saying, doesn't it? But just in terms of the development and how important that is to you and do you think to this team?
Yeah, I mean, it's been an emotional roller coaster looking at that. I thought, well, surely we're a lock for top 8, but then you lose Tohu and, that makes a significant impact. But then you see how the boys, came together in the style of footy they're playing in the trials, that if they can click, they're going to be very difficult to defend against. So I will be very, very disappointed if we don't make top 8. But I think, we're going to be battling it out with maybe 4 or 5 other teams there.
I get that feeling, yeah.
It's hard to know. Like, I honestly would be disappointed, but I think it's to have the progression of these young guys like we just mentioned there, the guys like Sam Healy, to see a guy like Tane Tuopiki who's been on the fringes for a couple of seasons now, to step up and show that they are next-gen superstars for us, like we believe they can be. And that way you've got a very solid base for the next 5 or 6 years. That's something I'm really looking forward to. In
terms of running the ball back, are these wingers going to be doing much of that? Like, obviously, Devlin did, obviously Montoya did, and it was huge, that role they had to. I mean, are we going to see Tane doing that, or is it going to be all on Rogers, or all going to be on Chance doing that?
Well, Roger ran for an average of 180 metres at centre last year. I think he led the comp at centres returning the ball. Tane actually ran for something like 150 metres when he played on the wing. So he doesn't shoot those runs, and he's got that late little step. So you'd hope that the centres help him out a little bit there.
Sure, mate.
I hope they do, because he's going to be running into guys like Timoci who certainly know how to hit. But
yes.
He's got that late step. But yeah, Charles will definitely be doing a bit of work.
In terms of our two bookends, because we know what the meters AFB made, we know the post-contact meters and everything else. Do we lose? Do we gain anything with Mitch alongside co-captain, but a guy with as much experience as James Fisher-Harris?
I mean, I think we saw how we'll do that again against the Storm there. Just the speed through the middle. If you can get that momentum off the back of a guy like RTS and followed up by Chance, that gives them momentum and the defence on the back, the back foot. So I think we can. We'll just do it in a different way. I always, had one frustration with AFB is you really saw him hit the line at 100%. He was a guy who'd sort of jog into the line, he'd put in a late step, and then he'd strain his way through.
Yeah, true.
An extra 10 metres, and that was very similar to what Tohu did. So they both got slow metres.
Right.
The benefit with AFB is he had 4 guys hanging off and getting off straight away. So it'll be different, but I expect it to be very direct and very quick. And that's another reason I like the idea of Sam Healy, because he can spot a gap and make you 10, 15 metres in an instant, which turns the momentum, which is really difficult to do in a game of rugby league these days. So,
mate, you need to have a microphone in your hand in the pub, mate, because, you're starting to make me feel it already. So you've never ever been anything other than an optimist. Have you ever gone into any season thinking this? Mate. No?
I was a terrible fan for many years. I got, how emotional I am. And I got frustrated like a lot of other people did during COVID, but it was when I started to sit back and look at the shit the boys were getting for being away from their families. And I had to sit back and sort of look at myself as a fan, looked at a guy like Sir Peter Leach and thought, I need to be a little bit more like that and think a little bit more balanced. And I've taught myself to actually look at this game differently, because they're humans, right? I might have got frustrated when Ed Cossey dropped the ball the other day, but I've spoken to him about his family being abused in the street for the game he had in Anzac Day there at the Storms a couple of years back. So that's why I try to be balanced, mate. Just to be fair to them.
Nothing wrong with being a little unbalanced when you're a Warriors fan, though.
Oh, I don't know, mate. I have my moments, you know that.
I know, you do. How are you feeling, though, mate? Let's go back to that, just in terms of the season. Obviously, we're all excited. We've had a couple of great rounds of Super Rugby to get us all warmed up for the first round of NRL. The comp proper starting again. I don't know, there's just so much anticipation around it, isn't it? I love this week. I love these last few days, because by the time Sunday rolls around, we're just going to be champing at it.
it's kind of annoying that it's all happening on one day on Sunday. But it's kind of weird for me. I'm over in Japan at the moment. I've just been working these crazy days, but I arrived back in New Zealand like 8 o'clock on Saturday morning with 24 hours to get over the jet lag and just like sit there all day Sunday. And I think that's when it'll really hit, because like I said, I genuinely believe Webby's going to be playing smoke and mirrors with this lineup.
Okay. And
I'm always sitting there waiting for that last change 1 hour before the game to see who's actually going to run out there. But that feeling when we see, James Fisher-Harris and Mitch Barnett lead them down the tunnel, it'll be dark over there in the stadium. I can't wait, mate. It's more exciting than Origin for me.
DSPN. The Tight Five.
5 separate sporting topics in Lachlan. Roughly 90 seconds on each, and when the bell goes ding, so do we on to the next topic. I want to talk about Timoci Tavatavanawai, as Justin Marshall suggested yesterday.
Good pronunciation.
Put him in a black jersey. F1 cars, well, RB21 on the track today. Have you seen it? Looks pretty spectacular. Love the livery on it. Champions Trophy, picked the semi-finalists, rained out overnight. Martin Nonu still playing at 42. The 2 Canberra players we talked about in the opening sermon. And Arteta says they're not giving up on the title race. We'll try and squeeze all of those in it. Starting off with Tavatavanawai. I liked what Justin said yesterday. It has gone off on social media, this particular clip. It's got last look well over 60,000 views on TikTok alone, suggesting that put that boy in a black jersey. Look, I did say at the start of Super Rugby, didn't I? How long is it going to be before us types in the media start saying the word bolter and All Blacks in the same sentence? But this is all part of the fun of it. And when a guy is as impressive as that, as he has been for the Highlanders, why not?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's always players that sort of come out of nowhere. Now, he has had a great couple of years.
Yes,
it's not that he's been...
Especially for Tasman.
Yeah. So there's always a player that sort of pops up that I guess we didn't really expect. I think Wallace Atiti was the one last year.
There you go.
For me, it was Peter Gus-Solakula a couple of years ago. Even Amoni Narawa as well recently. Just these guys that sort of pop up.
Samasoni was another one who just exploded.
Yeah, all these guys. So this seems to be another one. And I think at second five, when we found Geordie Barrett, we felt we'd found our second five, but we felt there were also I at least did. There were 2 other options in Quintu Paia if he could get back to the form that he had in 2022. And he's been playing very well. And Dallas McLeod as well, who I'm personally a big fan of, but he's been missing for the last year.
And that Dallas McLeod trumpet for a couple of years.
I love Dallas McLeod. I think he's been battling injuries as well, so it's not entirely his fault. But no, Tavatavanawai is absolutely in that selection frame, that All Blacks selection frame. Yeah. I don't think Justin broke new ground, but it was nice that he was defined. He said, no, if they're not picking this guy, or they're not at least discussing it, something's wrong with New Zealand rugby. Speaking
of second fives, let's start with Martin Nonu then, 42 years young, the medical joker, which is an injury replacement. It's a French term. He's playing for Toulon. And I don't think we've had a better one. I think he's the best All Black second five. Best number 12 we've ever had. Now, I go back to combinations. So the Walter Little, Frank Bunce combination, Osborne, Bruce Robertson, the dearly departed. And then, of course, you got Warwick Taylor, Joe Stanley. But Martin Nonu, to me, 103 tests, 2 World Cup wins, played from 03 to 15, and still playing. Get that. He's 42. I bumped into him at the airport last year in November. And, g'day, mate, how are you? Where are you going? He said, I'm off to Japan to do some coaching. He is
He's huge,
built,
isn't he?
And he's so fit. And he looks, I said, are you playing? He just laughed. He's still playing.
So
I love this guy.
I went to, it was, I think, one of the very first media sessions that I went to when I was at Radio Sport, when it still existed, RIP. And it was a Blues one, I think it was 2018, and Martin Nonu was there. And, this is the case with all rugby players. If you ever meet an All Black or a Super Rugby player in person, it was the same when I saw Sam Cane for the first time in person. Yeah, you'll read that they're 6'2" or 6'3". They're 100 something kgs or 90 something kgs, but you don't actually realise how big these guys, how wide they are.
How wide Martin
until you meet Martin Nonu. Like, he looked as big, if not bigger, than Sonny Bill Williams. And if you're watching them on the TV, because Sonny Bill was at the Blues at the time, Sonny Bill looked a lot bigger. But in person, I just couldn't believe how big Martin Nonu was. It was the same, we went to a Warrior session and just were gobsmacked by Adam Fanua-Blake.
Huge.
Wide.
Just here, like almost, and look, that midfield of the All Blacks is not settled. Let's be honest about it. No disrespect to Rico, but the guy's played 70-something tests. Name me 3 where he's been absolutely outstanding. 70 tests at centre. And you can't name them. we need another combination there. I'd love another guy like Martin Nonu. That's why we linked in Timoci.
Just quickly, actually, in defence of the current crop of players, and it's a similar argument that we bring up with Sam Cane. It's very hard to follow on from a golden generation of All Blacks. So we haven't found the combination because the standard that was set was so high.
Okay, that's fair. But, competition for these places is only good for all of those players.
Well, it's good if you can find a 15.
2 Canberra players, both selected, Young and Smithies, both named for the Raiders this weekend after behaving like pork chops and doing the drunken thing and fighting in the lift and all of that kind of bollocks. As I started the show with, no one's surprised at all. I was amazed last year in the Vegas trip that we didn't have half a dozen stories like this, especially after the event, because the players are going to go out after the event. And Vegas is called Sin City for a reason. If you've ever been there, it doesn't need to be explained.
Yeah, it's also one of those places. I've been there twice. I went there as a 14-year-old.
That would have been fun for your parents.
Well, exactly. Now, because I went there as a 9.
Great, we got him.
I went there as a 21-year-old.
We're going to Vegas, love. We got the 13-year-old with us. Excellent.
Well, hey, it was a nice family trip, all right, about 14, 15 years ago now.
Disneyland first for adults.
We did go to Disneyland first as well, actually. It doesn't matter. Yeah, it's harsh. But the biggest story out of last year's one was Spencer Leniu calling Ezra Mam a certain racist word. So that was the biggest thing that came out of it. I love to say without a ball being kicked, there's already an issue. But who thought that rugby league players and Vegas was a good mix?
Well, as I said, it's bound to happen. This is going to happen throughout the season. The good thing about the NRL is it's almost like they embrace these stories. They get it. They put the player out there quickly. Everyone goes, you shouldn't have done it, or you should have, whatever, and then it's over. In rugby, they get it, and they bury it, and they hide it, and they cover it, and they try and pretend it didn't happen, and then they blame you and me for talking about it.
And they blame the media or something. Well, I tell you what's actually probably worse about the NRL is that things won't get covered up, but they won't even punish them, or they won't give them that serious of a punishment.
No.
And also, I mean, who's sitting there acting as though these guys are role models? I mean, if someone
come on.
The journos and the analysts will come in and say, it's a real shame, he's a big name of our game, he's a role model, he shouldn't be behaving. Stop it. No one's looking up to these guys. So I wouldn't worry about that.
Let's cover a couple of topics here, because they can both be quick. Champions Trophy, rained out overnight, bugger. I mean, I wouldn't have watched this game. I would have watched maybe the beginning of it, and I would have woken up and checked the score. But I wanted to see South Africa play Australia because this is really significant in terms of who we're going to play in the semi-final. So now England play Afghanistan tonight. Whoever loses that is out.
This has really opened the door for England, hasn't it?
Well, if they win against South Africa, they could get through. But I still believe that these two teams are the best two teams in that pool, if not in the whole tournament. Such a shame it got rained out.
Well, India were pretty clinical against. Well, this is the thing. I think India, India, South Africa, Australia looked very good early on, and we have too.
Yes.
Which props to Rahul Patel, who predicted those 4 teams to make the semi-finals. But those 4 are clearly the pace setters right now.
And props to Dooley for pointing it out, and it's the most obvious thing. Preparation. What is a good preparation? Makes better for playing performance, or whatever the hell that saying is. And warm-up matches where you're playing.
Yeah. So, no, I agree with you. It's a real shame we didn't get to see the match in the sense that we didn't see 2 of the best play each other at the same. And I mean, obviously, I don't know who would have won, but it would have given us a bit more clarity over who we play. Obviously, no one wants to play Australia. So if South Africa could have actually won that game, then we're into the final, which would still lose to Australia anyway. So I don't know. As a neutral, as a fan of cricket, it's a shame we didn't see it, but it doesn't change much with the Black Caps. Though.
One topic to go, and we'll actually combine 2 in this. Because I know how much of an F1 fan you are, and finally, RB21 on the track. So, I mean, you don't get to see it race. This is the Red Bull car. Of course, Liam Lawson will be in it with Max Verstappen as well. I don't know whether Liam's car is going to be exactly the same as Max's. Max's will probably be just a little bit faster. Just a little bit faster. But I always find this really exciting at the start of F1 season to see the cars.
Seeing the liveries is quite fun. I like how Ferrari's red is always, there's always debate over how red is it allowed to be.
Isn't that a great debate? Isn't that a great debate? How silly, isn't it?
Yeah.
It doesn't look like a red Ferrari. Well, it's a Ferrari and it's red.
Yeah. Could be a little less burgundy.
And then I think Mercedes, and I think everyone else loses. I think RB and Ferrari, the 2 cars that everyone wants to see.
Well, I don't. Aesthetically, I think the colour scheme of the Red Bull cars is always quite good and quite cool. Ferrari is Ferrari. It's the most culturally impactful. Culturally,
yeah, I understand that.
Team that there is in Formula One. There's so much history, and it's still maintained that, and the colour scheme and what it means to the Italians. Not just car
I think
fans, but
around
just
the
Italians
world,
full
people
stop.
love
yeah.
Ferraris. I saw one yesterday which was an electric blue.
Yeah.
What a weird, colourful one.
Well, you know
But
that
it
the most
still looked
popular
like damn
colour in
cool.
Ferraris
It's yellow.
It's yellow. It's
Yeah.
not red, which
No.
is wild. So rich people obviously have poor taste in their cars, but colours that is, not the car itself. But no, it's really cool seeing the liveries. Yeah, I always, you know, you can read into what does it account for better performance?
Who knows?
I
no.
I remember Mercedes had they went to black, and it was a Black Lives Matter thing. The reason why they changed from silver to black a few years ago. And then the fans and the public seemed to love the black so much. And when they went back to silver, there was complaints that why have you gone back to the traditional
It's a slower
silver?
car.
Well, yeah, pretty much.
Okay, quickly
let's
before
go.
we leave, Mikel
Let's go to
Arteta
work.
says they're not going to give up the title race, Arsenal, over his dead body. We don't want to be saying that because the title race is over, mate.
Yeah.
Liverpool and
Don't say
Arsenal
it's not
both
dead
play
body.
tomorrow. It's over. It's done, isn't it?
Well, what's the gap?
title.
11 points. We have 11 games left, I think. 12 maybe. They have one game in hand. But look,
United,
the thing
Liverpool, 20 titles all.
The thing is, yeah, how good's that? But the thing is, Arsenal, if you guys were winning your games, sure, okay.
Stop talking
the door
until
might
you
be ajar.
Stop talking until you win.
You lost to West Ham at
home.
home. But yeah, so
Home.
I think Liverpool, now that we're equal on league titles or top division titles, I think we've always had more
European
trophies,
Cup,
but overall. But now we're the biggest club in England.
Back
again,
on the
aren't we?
perch. No question.
We're bigger than you.
Sick.
How does that feel? 15th.
LBP from TMG. That's Let's Be Positive. Twizel's Matt Gunn. Normally joins us every Tuesday, but since we're having a big rugby league special today, Gunny has been a lifelong Bulldogs fan. Welcome back, mate. Before we get into that, though, you've had the rowing nationals down at Lake Ruataniwha in Twizel over the weekend, and it turned into a real live riot in the middle of Twizel town.
Yeah, Saturday night. Apparently 500 drunk people descended on the centre of Twizel to the top hut and caused absolutely havoc. Police had to be called from Timaru and Waimate. They had to shut the pub. And there were assaults, public urination, smashed up items around town, you name it. There were even three drink driving charges during the same time period after the rowing nationals. New Zealand Rowing said there's none of our people involved. But there were no other parties in Twizel over the weekend where 500 people could have come from. So, look, I don't know what's going to happen, but Wakatipu Rowing Club, one of their spokespeople's come out and said it's Twizel's fault. They should be putting on bigger parties and bigger venues. The pub's supposed to double in size, is it, for the rowing nationals? I'm not sure what they expect. A little bit of privilege here over the weekend. Of course, no one involved from the rowing.
Yeah, well, who else then? I mean, I don't think it's the locals. Yeah. The other thing is, you know, the poor old pub, because they would have been expected the tills, you know, great night for them, and then they have to shut the bloody door.
Well, it's quite a big venue, Martin. I'd say they probably get 300 plus in there in all the different areas. And a few hours of that at the top hut on a Saturday night, you'd be expecting to rake in potentially tens of $1,000s with a restaurant and pokies and pool and TAB and all the drinks and all the rest of it. So, yeah, they'll be well out of pocket. I mean, I think the irony is that the Top Hut sponsored rowing events over the years. I don't know if they'll be going back next time. The Community Board also sponsors one of the races down there at the Nationals. And honestly, I mean, now we've got to repair all the damage. So it's cost us for the race, and then they smash it up and throw it back in our face.
Are you still on the Community Board, or you're just reporting on the Community Board?
No, I'm not on the Community Board. The wife's the chairperson. I've got to be very careful with what I say about them, but I don't think she'll be going back next time. I'm not sure. But look, we've sponsored the rowing. They shut the lake down for a week for this event. We shut the lake down, which is a public facility, 8 to 10, 12 times a year for rowing events. And we always seem to have some trouble after it, but it's never them. No. So we'll see what happens as this progresses. But New Zealand Rowing and South Island Rowing, they really should jump on the front foot here, Martin, and either say, look, it's not our people and we disagree with what happened, or we disagree with what happened, and when the police results come out from the investigation, we'll make more comment. But at the moment, there's a real divide between rowing and the Twizel community, because the community lives in and around this, the parties that happen all week, the property damage, all the rest of it. They see it. So anyone that says there was no one from the rowing involved is delusional. Absolutely.
Hang on a second.
Delusional.
What confuses me here is that every media organisation in this country blazing headlines about 2 Canberra Raiders players with a blow-up baseball bat going berserk in Vegas, 500 people after the rowing and a big riot, even though it wasn't anyone from the rowing in Twizel, not a whisper, mate. I haven't even seen this anywhere.
There's a couple of stories snuck away somewhere. Nobody really is going to want to talk about it. I'll tell you, one of the very ironic parts of this whole situation is the race controller for that event at South Island Rowing is normally the deputy mayor of the district, now the current mayor, because our former mayor's off with fighting a cancer battle. So not only is our mayor involved, she was the race controller down there. And, well, as far as Rowing New Zealand is concerned, while they're working with police, there's no one from there involved.
I love the fact you're in a referee's jersey as we approach opening round of the NRL. What's that about?
I mean, it's just a casual shirt that I had there clean and ready to go this morning, and there was no thought put into what I put on every day. I mean, I thought that would have been pretty obvious. Very excited about the start of the rugby league season. Disappointed that I don't get to see the Doggies week one. But the Raiders and the Warriors and the Panthers and the Sharks in Vegas. So I was running through the program of events of what they've got going on over there. It's much bigger than NRL games. I mean, this is a proper push to go over there. Some people think it's mad. Other people think there could be a possibility. But, I mean, they've got UK Super League teams there. There's an international, I think, between Greece and America. That'll be absolutely enthralling, I'm sure. But nonetheless, it started, the week sort of started as we thought it might in Vegas. Two best friends, two teammates, refused to share a room together. Now, Martin, you and I have been to Dunedin for a rugby and other things. We're happy to share a room. Yeah. We'll lay on the same bed. Yeah. Two best mates in Vegas for the Canberra Raiders end up in a punch-up in an elevator because one of them doesn't want the other bloke to stay in his room. Then I read their wives are travelling America together. They're best mates. What sort of a best mate won't let you share the bed?
Well, this is, I mean, you know, I can understand if it's a night before the game and you want a bit of shut-eye or something like that. The other thing is that, you know, really, Ricky, you let them out. I mean, let them walk around Vegas, but the fact that they're out there and on it and everything in the first few days, I mean, it's just dumbass to me. But, hey, I'm not making any judgment because I expect this to happen. The fact it didn't happen last year is amazing to me. I expect a lot of these stories, and I expect most of them to happen after the games. Let's go back to your Doggies. What kind of season are you going to have? Because last year, it was one out of the box, but you kind of just stuttered over the finish line, and it was a bit disappointing right at the end. I mean, you were being talked up as a real title contender about 2/3 of the way through the season.
The problem that we actually had was our halves combination wasn't quite as good as it needed to be. Our forward pack maybe was a little bit small, and towards the end of the season, we lost a bit of momentum. I think that we've got a better halves combination this year. We've shored up the forward pack, taken on some great players, and I think that'll make all the difference for us. I look level-headed going into this season. There's a bit of an expectation on the Dogs after last year, but I think it was a bit of a one-off, and you need to build on that. So I'm not getting too excited about it. I think we've got a pretty strong squad. Follows on from last year. What I saw in the pre-season, even against the Broncos, where the Doggies got beat on the weekend, they weren't that much better than us, and we were pretty under strength. So I give ourselves a definite chance of the 8. I'll wait a few weeks before we decide on whether or not we'll make top 4, Marty. But, geez, it's exciting, isn't it? And this game on the weekend with the Warriors, I think they're a real show to beat Canberra.
Oh, yeah,
here.
I think they should. Yeah, I think they should too. And look, Matt Elliott was just explaining before, that Canberra side's probably lost more experience, more players than the Warriors. They're rebuilding again. And he said, you know, both teams, he said, are going to have to perhaps take a couple of steps backward to go forwards because they're going to bring a lot of young players through. I think it's very exciting for the Warriors. It may not happen this year. It might be that, you know, some of these young guys take another year. But the thing is, this competition waits for no one. And that's what your Doggies are going to find. You can't do what the Warriors did, have a 16-win season and then not make the 8. It's about making the 8 consistently, mate. And you know that. And so it's a really important year.
Oh, it's a very important year. It's probably the most important year we've had in 10 or more.
Yeah, because it was, 20 years since you'd been in the finals, wasn't it? Or 10 years?
We haven't had a great squad. We had salary cap restrictions for a long time. We were just in the middle of nowhere in terms of recruitment. Even though we got a good management team there, we just didn't seem to get the players we needed. I think that it's a settled squad, and I think that we can do all right. Yeah, it might not be this year. It might be next year. But the truth is that we've got some good young juniors coming through. We've got some players that have been very good off the bench and reserves over the last couple of years, and they're now making first grade. So, it's a big year.
All right,
it's a big year. And Roger, look, I just want to say Roger's on the wing. He's back on the wing. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck for this weekend. You could discuss whether or not this is the right place to put him, but I tell you what, if he was in my team, I'd be happy to have him on the wing, wouldn't you?
I'm happy to have him in the team, mate. I mean, look, I would still rather have number one on his back, but I'm happy to have him in the team. I still think that you've got, if not the best player in the comp, he's one of the best players in Stephen Crichton. Every time he gets the ball, he looks dangerous. He's just, if you had another 3 or 4 like him, I'd be really pushing you up there towards that top 4.
Oh, we would be Penrith. If you could squeak another couple of Stephen Crichtons into the squad on the basis of what he did last year,
it's outstanding.
In my mind, he was the player that made the biggest difference to any squad in the last 12 months.
Yeah, you're right.
And his commitment to the team, to defence, his fitness, his attacking ability, he scored tries that he shouldn't have scored. He never gives up. He's an absolutely perfect leader. And, look, I think he'll get even better this year. He may be the player of the year if he's able to lead the Doggies like he did last year.
Who wins the comp, mate? Don't tell me Penrith can win 5 in a row. What? That's St. George back in the 60s. I don't know how many. They won, 9 or 10, 11 championships in about 13 years or something silly, wasn't it? Can they win 5 in a row?
No, I don't. I don't think they can win 5. I mean, wouldn't that just be absolutely mind-blowing? I'm just trying to look for the round of games that are coming up. Look, I think the Sharks could be a chance this year.
Yeah, Matt says he's picking them against them this weekend. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the truth is that they scored a lot of points last year. They were a very aggressive attacking team. So they might do all right. Look, the Broncos have some incredible talent. And if Reynolds and the crew can lift to the level that they should, they might be a threat, but I'm not putting them.
No, they're a team of nightclubbers, mate. They'll let themselves down because that's what they're about. They're a team of nightclub boys, is what they are. They're like that Liverpool side back in the 90s, the Spice Boys. That's what the Brisbane Broncos are. They're not them. They're not them, mate. Roosters and Melbourne. I think Melbourne are the team to watch this year.
Well, Melbourne were absolutely tremendous last year, weren't they? They were always strong. I think, again, you give it the first 3 or 4 weeks and just see how they come out into the competition, and then you get a little bit better of an idea. I mean, you can guess all you like. You got to remember that before the start of Super Rugby, the Blues tipped. They were the short-priced favourites to win the comp. They haven't won yet.
How good?
So,
how good it's back,
how
mate.
Good is that?
We got the Super Rugby, which has been excellent to watch, and now the NRL's back.
And, of course, it'd be a shame to leave without mentioning the sensational effort by the Highlanders last week. How we got the job done, I don't know. But I'm telling you, when I looked at the betting app and it said 550 Highlanders, I went all in and I couldn't have been happier. That last 10, 15 minutes, I was a bit nervous. Well, what a great victory. The world is back where it should be, in the South. I think we could be potential champions this year after that victory.
Lock the doors, mate. There's rowers in town.
The DSPN.
That's our podcasting show for today. Again, if you're liking what you're listening and what you're seeing, then a small favour, if you will. Can you please hit like, share, subscribe, follow, tell a friend about it. We are a fledgling podcast and show, the DSPN, and we need you. And if you are participating, well, just click that subscribe button. That would help enormously. Thank you so much if you already have. Again, tell a friend if you like. We're doing this every single day, putting out a show every afternoon. The DSPN.
This is the DSPN.